We are off of our bye week and go straight into week 7, where we see our favorite teams, the Jets, the Panthers, now have off. So, what do we do now, guys? We're back. We're here. We got a slate of, I believe, 12 games to talk about today. And I'm excited to get into it, despite the absence of some of our favorites.
Yeah, I'm super excited to get into this. Panther free, stress free this week.
Yeah, no
No
hair
drummer.
pulling from the Jets end, so at least we can relax this week 7.
Pulling out some stressful wins for the Jets over the last couple of weeks. The Panthers, exhausting in another way, especially after the beatdown against the Dolphins occurred last week. And now we're getting into a week 7. The season is flying by, and we're heading to the midway point without even really realizing it and giving it much thought. But here we are. And without further ado, let us introduce ourselves. We are the SRTF Podcast, Senior Roundtable Football Podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Charlie.
And I'm Tev.
And welcome, and let us get right into it. Week 7 already started off with last night's game. The Jacksonville Jaguars heading into town on a short week to play the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, coming off of a heartbreaker against the Houston Texans, didn't really bring their A game over to Houston. Now with a chance to go to home against a team that was spent 2 weeks in London, came home, won a third game, 3-0 ever since that London trip has begun after a 1-2 start, and hoping to potentially catch the Jaguars looking into their bye week a little early. But that didn't quite happen, guys. What did we see out there from the Jaguars and the Saints?
What I saw from the Jaguars this week, I'll start off with them, is that their offense, even though despite winning, their offense still looks a little washy, despite Trevor Lawrence with the banged up knee, still had a very good game. 8 carries, 59 yards despite with the bum knee. Also had 204 yards through the air and a touchdown. I just felt like the run game wasn't really there. The Saints defensive line really came out there and stuffed that run, despite ETN having a pretty solid game with 53 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also had 24 yards through the air as well. And Calvin Ridley was a no-show. Only one catch for 5 yards. It wasn't really a Calvin Ridley type of game. It was more of a Christian Kirk type of game. He also went for 690 yards. Felt like the offense was pretty lackluster, but they got it done. They got it done in time. They played to their standards. The Saints gave up a bunch of yardage. Played pretty well in the red zone though with the Saints defense, but gave up a lot of yardage. But on the Saints end, Derek Carr looked very bad besides the fourth quarter. He was overthrowing receivers. He was yelling at Chris Olave, like me and Matt were talking about before the podcast. He was getting really angry with Chris Olave, even though that was a pretty bad throw by Carr. It wasn't Olave's fault. But Alvin Kamara, this guy is their whole offense. Legit, 17 carries, 62 yards. Also has 12 for 91. And despite the Alvin Kamara performance, Saints look bad. And honestly, I'm starting off 0-1 this week. Hopefully I can bounce back.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm starting 0-1. You brought up a lot of names there. One name that I wanted to bring up, I know Kamara looked like he was running whole Saints office on his own, but in reality, I think he had a Robin to his Batman out there. We saw Taysom Hill get 4 receptions. Saw him get involved as a tight end. We saw him get into the end zone with a rushing touchdown. Taysom Hill continues to be a little bit of an X factor for the Saints offense, and I think if they cater this offense a little bit more around Hill in the meantime, while Carr seems to get his shoulder worked out, whatever that is, I don't even think we can really blame it on the shoulder anymore. Like Charlie mentioned, I was kind of discouraged with the fact that Derek Carr seemed to shout at Chris Olave for giving up on a route, but the contradictory part there is that Derek Carr really threw that one into the sideline. So I think there are some issues to work out within the locker room, within this team's overall chemistry. Things don't seem to be clicking, and I blame that partially on the coaching. I think that the Saints do have the pieces on the roster, and as we brought up before in last week's episode, I think that, Marshawn Lattimore and some other names on the Saints are having big seasons, but this wasn't disciplined football. They made a lot of mistakes, the Jaguars, and the Saints really should have won this, but they missed a field goal there. They had mistakes of their own, and I was really disappointed to see the Saints not be able to win this one. I felt like if the Jaguars were going to go down before their bye week, the Saints would have had a fantastic opportunity to do so with this one, and instead they fall to 4-3.
Yeah, like you guys were saying, Saints defensive backs looked really good. I'm just a hater. Don't take whatever I say against the Saints too solid. I just want to see them fall and crumble. But besides that, um, yeah, like you guys said, Derek Carr signing is looking less and less as as a pretty one as it did in the beginning. I've always been a huge Jameis Winston fan. I thought Jameis was going to take over this team, and I thought he was going to do pretty good. In my opinion, Jameis Winston could be 3-4 right now. But that's just my opinion. This team is a lot better than what they did out there. Like you guys said, Alvin Kamara was the whole workhorse of that offense, and then Taysom Hill was that glue that just held him together whenever they couldn't get to him. Um, I also feel like they should try to target the ball a lot better to everyone else. Granted, Michael Thomas did get 7 targets, and also Taysom Hill ended up with 5, but ended up with just more catches. That just happens sometimes. Yeah, they need something. Obviously, what they have isn't working enough. This division's up for grabs. They could still come out and win this division, even starting off 3-4. Let's be real. The NFC South is awful. But they need a quick turnaround. They need something to spark them up so they can win this division and potentially see the postseason. Because how they're playing, they're just wasting generational talent on their defensive side.
Now with Olave on the offense too, Kamara is on the back nine of his career, so we can consider that talent that's already borderline wasted. The Saints have not made too many rumblings since Drew Brees started to slow down in his back nine of his career. So we have to see if Dennis Allen is truly the guy at the helm for the Saints, or if maybe they have to make a change there between the quarterback, between the coaching. Just a lot going wrong in New Orleans for a very, very talented team.
I was just like you said. Who do you think goes first, Dennis Allen or team blow up? Because Dennis Allen just got signed. Technically, whenever teams do blow up, they usually keep their first to second year head coach unless it's really really bad. What do you think happens first? Do they blow up or does Dennis Allen lose his job?
I
I
think
think Dennis Allen loses his job, honestly. In my opinion, I do think he loses his job because this is all on him. Like they hired him as a defensive guru type of way and find a way to win games through that type of games. And yeah, they've been close, but their offense has just been killing them. It's like they wasted more money on a quarterback that's just as bad as Zach Wilson this year. I think Zach Wilson is a better quarterback than Derek Carr this year, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, Carr's look mediocre. They just gave him a really bad contract, and you're really seeing the fall of the Saints, despite having a really good defense. Their offense is such a lackluster.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Charlie
Yeah.
there. I don't quite think that Derek Carr is playing on the level of Zach Wilson. I think Zach Wilson still has a ways to go, whereas Carr is a polished veteran, so the expectation shouldn't be around there anyway. I think Derek Carr has been a huge disappointment, but I'm with Charlie. I do think that Dennis Allen would be the first to go. This is a talented roster. Carr, while quarterback contracts aren't exactly the same as any others in the league, we've seen big contracts, 30, 40 million, be shedded kind of just like that. But Derek Carr does have a 4-year deal, and I think Dennis Allen wasn't necessarily supposed to be the head coach. Like I know he was appointed by Sean Payton and was there with Sean Payton. They want to continue the regime, but like Charlie said, Dennis Allen is supposed to be the defensive guru. I think he's over his head as a head coach, and I think that some guys around the league would probably fit that slot a little bit more. And yeah, I like that question. I also want to pose a question to you guys. Now that we've reviewed through Thursday, it's time to get into predictions time. I was wondering if there's any 1 o'clock game windows that you have your eye on more than any other.
I do this week, and it's a pretty interesting game. I don't know what Tev's gonna think, but I have the Lions and Ravens this week. I think that's the number one game that I'm really intrigued about this week. Two pretty good offenses going against each other. I think they're the same type of team in a way. They have a really good young defense. The Ravens have a good defense. Lions have a good defense. Lions and Ravens both have pretty good offenses. So I think it's going to go down between who's the better coach this week, John Harbaugh or Dan Campbell.
Ooh. So I will counter you, and and stay in the NFC South and stay Atlanta and Buccaneers are that number one team or that number one game. Just because that division's so close, and this game might come down to winning the division. We're seeing this. We just saw the Saints lose on Thursday night. Like I said, the Falcons have been playing pretty well, and the Buccaneers behind Baker Mayfield. He has been looking pretty good. I want to see if he could bounce back, or if Atlanta could stay red hot and get this road win. And if they could win and beat the Bucs on the road after a pretty tough loss, I feel like they go in the division. But I feel like, yeah, this game's going to be a lot more important down the season. So that's why I'm circling this game for the 1 o'clock slate.
If I wasn't going to go for one that you guys already said, I would probably be looking right there at that Lions-Baltimore game as well. But instead, I'm going to take us into another direction. I think we're going to have a good one in Foxborough, while the New England Patriots, while struggling at 1-5, are going to be hosting Josh Allen and the Bills. After getting off to a pretty hot start, Josh Allen has seemed to hit a little bit of another cold streak. There are talks that he plays down to the competition that he's against, almost like the Mike Tomlin of quarterbacking, where he plays the best, much like Tomlin coaches the best against the top competition. He seems to slack a little bit, and he did that last week against the Giants, which shout out to a young defender, Micah McFadden, I hadn't heard about, responsible for 2 turnovers during that Sunday night game that we didn't really get a chance to talk about, but we soldier forward. I wanted to bring up this game because of the fact that Bill Belichick is 36-12 against the Buffalo Bills in his career. The Buffalo Bills are heading into a pretty tough defense despite the injuries. J.C. Jackson is back with that Patriots team to help mitigate the loss for Christian Gonzalez. And that's the one I have my eye on the most. So while I'm going to hesitate to see Bill Belichick maybe pull out this one while he's going through one of the worst coaching stretches of his career and coaching one of the worst rosters that he's had in his Patriots career, I'm really interested to see if the Patriots can possibly sneak one on the Bills. As we know, division rival matchups tend to get a little more scrappy and a little less predictable. So while I'm not going as far as saying I take the Patriots there, I think they have as good a shot as any team could against the Bills. So without further ado, I want to pose the question to you guys. Do we think that this is a potential trap game? Do we think that this is upset of the week category?
I don't think this is going to be upset of the week category. I think this Patriots offense has looked terrible. This offense looked terrible. The defense looked terrible. And there's reports coming out saying Robert Kraft is thinking about parting ways with Bill Belichick after this season, depending on how the season ends for them. But I think it's going to be, what was the record that Belichick versus the Bills all time?
36-12.
It's going to be 36-13. I'm going to take the Bills. I was going to make it my lock of the week, but I feel like that was an easy one. So, but despite that, I'm still taking the Bills.
Oof. I mean, I'm not to say that you motivated this pick, but you also you kind of helped me a little more, so I don't have to explain it too well. Going into this, I thought the Patriots could win this at home. I'm thinking that Bill's on the hot seat. I mean, he's not a social media guy, but he got to know you're 1-5. You're 100 years old. Your regime's starting to go down. Your job's on the line since last year. He got to know it. He has to feel it. It's got to be known around that little awkward silence a little bit. You know what I'm saying? That little couple that isn't going too well, but post like they're happy. That's what's going on with the Patriots right now. I feel like they're posing like they're happy, posing like they're the strong team, but we all know inside that they're crumbling. So this win right here is a big public showing that we're still here. Belichick needs this win. So yeah, I don't like betting against Belichick. Betting against Belichick never worked for me. So yeah, that's why I was looking for them to come out and win this. Not saying Mac Jones is going to be the reason why they win it, but I'm saying scheme versus scheme, coaching versus coaching. Some reason Bill finds a way to beat certain teams, and that's one of the teams.
I feel a little bit bad, Tev. I was holding a few stats back, which is going to paint a little bit of a different picture that's been happening for this New England Patriots team over the past few years, even while we weren't questioning Belichick as much as we are this year. Bills have won the last 4 against the Patriots and have won 6 of the last 7. So while the Belichick is 36-12 against the Bills, he used to be 35-6, which is what, pretty much 7 games to 1 loss, just about. I think that that trend will continue. I'm with Charlie here. I'm taking the Bills over the Patriots. The Patriots just don't have enough firepower on that roster. And enough can be said about the Patriots defense. They have been holding their own. Once again, really didn't allow too much against the Raiders. I believe 21 points was the score, 17-21. So I think that they can hang in there with the Bills. I think this will probably be a one-score game. This will be one that I will be probably shitting bricks during, going, should I just have picked the Patriots? Did I overthink this one? Because I think it will be that type of scare of the game. Like I said, a division rival game doesn't necessarily go as predicted, and yet I'm still taking the Bills here. The Bills have allowed 15 points per game this season. I know they've faced less than stellar competition at times. The Commanders was kind of a week off, but they've also faced teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Bills haven't given me enough to make me think that they're going to drop this one, and I'm going to take them. Give me the Bills. Moving forward, I want to get to another game that I kind of have highlighted for this 1 o'clock slate of windows. Not because I think it'll be the game of the week by any stretch, but because we have a unique opportunity to see 2 young quarterbacks or a veteran career backup quarterback go against a former Division II record setter. Tyson Bagent against Aiden O'Connell or Brian Hoyer and the Raiders, while the Chicago Bears deal with the loss of Justin Fields. What are we thinking about this game, guys? Tyson Bagent went to Shepherd University, a Division II school, and did end up becoming the Division II record setter for completions and yards with over 17,000 during his career. And we did see him rush for a touchdown during his first NFL action against the Minnesota Vikings. Do we have any feelings about this game? Anything that interests us? Because I feel like this one with 2 backup quarterbacks that we don't know much about is going to be wide open.
This game is going to be one of the best games I'll ever see in my lifetime. This game is. Do you remember when I said the Broncos and Bears game was going to be America's game of the week? This is another America's game of the week. We get basically 3 quarterbacks with counting Tyson Bagent with the Raiders, despite who they're going to start, Aiden O'Connell or Brian Hoyer. This game's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of turnovers. It's going to be very sloppy. I think this is a game that Josh Jacobs could come back to life because I know he's been very inefficient this week, like the last couple of weeks. The offensive line for the Raiders has been bad, especially with the run blocking. But despite the no top name quarterbacks in this matchup, I will take the Raiders. I think talent does prevail in this eventual matchup. I think Davante Adams could will have a bounce back week despite catching like 6 passes the last 2 weeks from Jimmy Garoppolo. I think this is the week that Davante Adams steps up, has another big game. Josh Jacobs comes back to life, and this Raiders pass rush, and hopefully some Tyree Wilson action could eventually get to that quarterback from Shepherd University. Let me get the Raiders in this.
I'm glad that you brought up Davante Adams. He's been publicly coming out and saying, not through an agent, not through a person, just straight up him saying, "Get me the ball, we could get more wins." He's frustrated. He's not frustrated with quarterback play. He's not frustrated with team play. He's frustrated with his targets. Came out straight up and said that, I believe, last night or 2 nights ago on Twitter. He said his point is that he wants to get the ball more. He believes that if he gets the ball more, he could create a better opportunity for his team to win. He's not throwing slights at any teammates. He just believes that's the type of player that he is, and I believe that as well. Whoever starts for the Raiders, like you said, if they can get the ball to Davante, they have a pretty good chance of winning this game. And I believe that Davante got the short end of the stick. Let's remember Davante left Green Bay to kind of make a name for himself. Even though he did have a name for himself, he wanted to get away from that Aaron Rodgers-esque person that Aaron Rodgers elevated. He wanted to show off that, yes, he is a top receiver on his own. And I believe that he is. I believe if he can get 6 catches this week, they could win the game. So let's get him 6 catches and get this win. I'm going with the Raiders as well.
Yeah, I think that you properly identified the big X factor of the game, Davante Adams, not necessarily keeping his mouth shut about where he feels his role should be, and I think this will be a good opportunity for that. We saw last time Aiden O'Connell came out on the field. Devontae Adams got 13 targets, 8 catches, 75 yards. And I think he could be in line for another 13, 15, possibly getting even close up to 20 target game against this Bears pass defense that ranks 29th. That being said, this Bears defense is no slouch on its own right, and they're starting to hit their stride, especially with how they played the Vikings last week. 220 yards allowed, 2 for 13 on third down allowed. And this Bears team really got it done through their defense, winning that game against Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. So there's part of me that has a lot of hesitation to go bet against the Bears in this one. I really do want to ride with the rookie quarterback. And you know what? I am. I don't think the Raiders are a coherent enough team. I know 2 wins in the past 2 weeks will make people forget very soon, but I'm not. Josh McDaniels has not been running the prettiest show over there. Josh Jacobs was complaining about his frustration with losing just 2 weeks ago, and now we're getting Devontae Adams even when they won 2 weeks in a row, saying that I'm not happy with the way it's being done. And it's painting a bad picture over there. I know Devontae Adams wants to help his team win, but right now it's a lot of unhappy people, a lot of mouths that feel like they haven't been fed appropriately. And while this would typically be the game where the Raiders could pull one out, the Bears aren't necessarily top-notch competition, and the Raiders have been taking advantage of games like that. I know they dropped the one to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but we could see no further than the win against the Broncos and also the recent win against the Patriots. They've been taking care of those less than stellar competitions, but for some reason I just can't buck the feeling that they're not going to do it this game. So give me Tyson Bagent. I think he's going to see his number one receiver get involved. I think DJ Moore is going to be the one to get close to 10, 15 targets, maybe get stared down a bit because these running backs for the Bears are still not healthy. They're still waiting on Roschon Johnson to be fully cleared. He's questionable heading into this week. So while there's definitely a lot to put this game up in the air, like I said, I don't think I'd feel confident picking either team. I'm still picking the Bears.
One more thing for Devontae Adams is that there's going to be a reunion coming soon with him and formerly known as number 12, now number 8 in a certain New York team coming soon.
Can only hope,
That is
but if he's looking for targets, he's not going to get him in New York. Garrett Wilson's the one. I think Breece Hall has a big piece of this offense, and we would just be creating the same problem in New York. I don't think we need to worry about adding another piece like Devontae Adams, and I know that sounds a little spoiled to say, but it's true. I think that our weapons right now in the Jets are good, and honestly, another team that's pretty good on weapons right now, I would say, the Washington Commanders. Terry McLaurin has been getting up to pace with Sam Howell. In the backfield, we've seen Brian Robinson have a bit of a breakout year. Antonio Gibson still getting involved. Eric Bieniemy getting the most out of this Washington Commanders offense, which includes now Curtis Samuel getting over 70 yards, I believe, in the last 2 games. The Commanders now 3-3 after a comeback win against the Atlanta Falcons. They humbled Desmond Ridder. That defense still gave up a bunch of yards, but 3 picks to go with it. And the Commanders, despite seeing Sam Howell get sacked an NFL leading 34 times, we might see the same thing happen to the Giants. Still missing a bunch of offensive linemen. Andrew Thomas, John Michael Schnitz, backup lineman Matt Pert. I believe Evan Neal's also listed as questionable. So how do we feel about this divisional matchup, guys?
I feel like this is gonna be a pretty interesting game. I know the Giants are probably most likely without Daniel Jones with the neck injury that he's had that he suffered 2 weeks ago. But I do think that this Giants offense could be pretty solid, depending on the Washington Commanders passing defense, because they gave up a lot of passing yards the last couple of weeks. But they did pretty solid against the Falcons against Desmond Ridder. But with him benching Emmanuel Forbes, who's been really disappointing against the top name wide receivers, they actually got it done pretty well. Giants only having 2 passing touchdowns on the year, I think that's pretty bad. They're one of the worst scoring offenses in the league, and that's why I think the Commanders are going to win. Give me the Commanders. They still have a good pass rushing defense. I like Montez Sweat, Chase Young. They give up a lot of pressure, and their secondary's been pretty well as well with Kendall Fuller, Benjamin St-Juste, Derek Forrest, another good player. But yeah, give me the Commanders in this. I really like their defense.
I like that you brought up their defense, and I also like Matt that you brought up their star power on offense. Curtis Samuel finally filling in that role when they signed him in 2021. He got hurt last season, didn't have too great of a season this season, finally filling in that role as that number 2 receiver, potentially number 1B. With 27 catches, 285 yards, and 2 TDs. Both of his 2 touchdowns came in the last 2 weeks against Atlanta and Chicago. And he's been showing out. I believe that he will have a potentially another big game this week. I see him possibly going over 100 for the first time this year. With the track that he's going and the way that the Giants have been playing. Yeah, they could have came out with better decision making, better clock management. They could have came out and beat the Bills last week on Monday night prime time, but it didn't happen. I believe that the team is a better team without Daniel Jones playing right now. As much as people may think it's different, Tyrod Taylor, besides that game management, I feel like that came with the cobwebs, that came with him coming in that week and taking over that offense. But Commanders are going to get this win and seal off their fate as this third best team in their division, in the stacked division, actually. But I see Curtis Samuel going over 100 and potentially this season even going over 1,000. He's having a pretty good season so far.
I think we could see quite a few players end up over that 100 mark. I really see this being, ironically enough, a barn burner. I think Tyrod Taylor is going to bring the best out of this New York Giants offense. He hasn't been playing too much over the last few years, and there's not too much tape on him. And I feel like when that happens, like we saw with Josh Dobbs throughout the first week of his season, when there's not too much tape on a quarterback, sometimes it's hard to play a scheme against them for the defensive coordinator, and the preparation standpoint of the game kind of gets away. So we saw the Bills hold Tyrod Taylor to 24, 36, 200 yards right on the dot, but no touchdowns, no interceptions. And the other name I want to bring up, lining up right behind Tyrod Taylor, Saquon Barkley. He got 28 touches last game, 98 yards, got him back involved right away after his multi-game absence. And I think that he will be the key for the Giants to get this one done. I think they're going to have to get him involved in the passing game, get him involved in the running game, and really take advantage of what the Washington Commanders give them in terms of the front seven playing very inconsistently. Big names like Chase Young not necessarily getting to the quarterback as much as we would like to see. If Tyrod Taylor can find a little room to breathe, get the ball to his playmakers, Darren Waller looking good last week with Tyrod Taylor at the helm, I think that the Giants are on upset alert here. Before I get into my prediction, I also want to bring up the Commanders. 28th ranked passing, or 28th ranked defense in total yards, 29th in points per game. Neither of these teams are really set to do much defensively, despite Bobby Okereke really kind of bringing in this Giants defense very well last week, and the shout out to Micah McFadden I gave out earlier on. So there's some names that are coming to play for the Giants despite the rough season, and I think they're going to get it done. I've been picking the Commanders a lot. I didn't pick them last week against Atlanta, and that bit me in the butt. So I know that conventional wisdom would have me getting back on board for them taking a win against a lesser foe. But the Giants look scrappy, allowing the Bills to only 14 points and making Josh Allen play a little bit down to their level. So give me the Giants here. I think that this is going to be my upset of the week. And
Interesting. I like that.
thank you.
Ooh. That's a great pick, honestly. That could have went either way, but that's a great pick.
Those two teams, they both teams can disappoint in their own ways.
Yeah, so Riverboat Ron, we've been talking about heart, and not saying the Giants have a lot of it so far this season, but they showed a lot of it last year, and it just takes one to create a spark. So that's kind of my thought process behind it. And speaking of sparks, we've seen this Detroit Lions team spark a bit of a run over these last 16 regular season games, 13-3 over their last 16 regular season games, spanning back to the 2022 season. It's been nothing but smooth sailing, really, for the Detroit Lions. And Dan Campbell really heading into a high-stakes matchup with John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens. And as Charlie brought up, it could potentially be a battle of wits and coaches, with Dan Campbell and John Harbaugh looking among the top tier of coaches in the NFL. So where do we see this one going? can the Ravens even the records at 5-2 apiece, or do the Lions pick up their 14th win in their last 17?
Tev, I know you're a big fan of Lamar. I know he's your boy. I know he's your playoff team. But I'm going to go with actually Goldman's playoff team, Super Bowl contender. I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions. I think that like what Matt said, it's going to be between Dan Campbell and John Harbaugh, both pretty good coaches. I would say I'm around the same tier type of coach. The defense is very similar. They play really good defense. I think what's going to hurt the Ravens is actually the Lions' offense. I feel like their offensive line. You could say for the Lions, you could make a debate saying that they have the best offensive line in the league with the Eagles. Both teams know how to run the ball. They like to get the receivers open. I like to shout out Ben Johnson, who's also been one of the best coordinators in the league. Bear knows how to get like players like Amon-Ra St. Brown open all the time. Josh Reynolds is having a great year. Jameson Williams coming off suspension. I feel like he should get more involved, hopefully this week. But he's caught a touchdown last week against Tampa. And Jared Goff's been playing very well. So honestly, I do think that the Detroit Lions are going to go on the road into Baltimore and beat the Ravens.
I'm just gonna throw some stats out here, team stats. Lions total offensive yards this year, they're averaging around 393. And then they're also not total. Averaging their total yards is 393.8, and then you have the Ravens at 353.7. They split that yardage pretty well between the run and the pass game. And then their defenses also are also allowing a lot of yards with 307 yards and 295, around the same with that as well. I believe this game is going to be an offensive game. Besides, if one side makes the other side make few turnovers, which I doubt there are going to be this game, with Brian Branch out for Detroit, potentially being out for Detroit, and then with CJ also being on IR. I believe Brian Branch stepped up and filled that role very, very, very well. I don't think everyone expected him to, even myself. I was a big Brian Branch fan going into this season, but even myself did not think he could fill that role that CJ had. But that being said, a few weeks ago, I said it. Ravens are going to win out. And I believe this is going to be that game where everyone's going to be like, whoa, Ravens might be back. This is the first game this season that their injury report isn't a CVS receipt. I believe it's just their game to lose. I believe every game this season is their game to lose. I believe they have the star power on offense to keep up with almost every team in this league. This is going to be MVP Action Jackson game. It may sound like I've been repeating this the last few weeks, but that's just my stance on this team. I feel like this year is a big year for them. If not, they should honestly start to look elseways at other places, because I don't think you could get any better with the molding of this team and this offensive coordinator.
I'm going to paint a picture of what's going to happen on Sunday. The Ravens are going to get out pretty big early. I know that the Lions have been taking it 2 teams. We saw them get up against the Bucks, but kind of stalled after that. And the Ravens have outscored opponents 41-6 in the first quarter. And I think we're going to see that happen again. We're going to see the Ravens get off to a hot start. Odell Beckham caught the 20-something yard catch relatively early on in the game last week against the Titans and broke free, if not just for a second. And I think we could see him break free again. We talk about Jameson Williams on the other side. I think Odell Beckham and Jameson Williams are going to be the X factors for their teams, because we're going to need to see some big plays here. These are 2 very tough defenses, and it's only going to take a few mistakes to let this game slip out of hand. So I have the Ravens getting up early. I think that the Ravens could end up making some sort of mistake. They have had some gaffes both on offense and defense this year, and I don't think that could necessarily stop. Detroit Lions have found a way to run the ball. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be back, and Craig Reynolds can also get involved in the pass game. So I think that even if it's not a more traditional run game, we could see the chains get moved by some very talented young runners. So Lions are going to roar back into this game, no pun intended. Pun very intended. And finally, as my final prediction for this game, and what I'm going to call not so bold prediction, but I hope you guys will let me count it as a bold prediction, This game wins with Justin Tucker kicking not his first, not his second, but his third 60-plus yard field goal against this Detroit Lions team. Just 2 years ago, when Detroit was getting started, the Dan Campbell era was underway, and they couldn't snag a win until late December. This Ravens team came up, and this Ravens team almost lost to the Lions. But Justin Tucker's kicked a 66-yard field goal for the Ravens to pull it out. And just in their meeting in 2013, back when Justin Tucker was just a young kicker getting started in the league, he pulled out a 61-yarder against the Lions to win the game as well. So why not predict to have it happen again if it's already happened twice? I think that Justin Tucker will keep Thev's prediction true because of the outworldly range he allows for the Ravens to, if he's anywhere near that midfield marker, I feel like I'm confident that Justin Tucker is going to get it done. And Lamar Jackson, if he gets caught up against this Detroit Lions defense, I think that's going to bail him out later in the game. So it might not be an easy win. It might not be a pretty win. I think defenses are going to get involved. I think mistakes are going to be made. But I think the Ravens are going to pull this one out in truly theatric fashion.
And before we move on, I have a question for both you guys. I know I asked this a few weeks back about despite now with David Montgomery out, how much of Jahmyr Gibbs will we see on Sunday?
Fair bout.
Like, do you think he's going to get a lot more work, or despite Craig Reynolds, who gets a good amount of carries when Montgomery's out?
I feel like I didn't fully cover that, but I feel like I kind of covered that in the fact that I don't feel like it's going to be a traditional run game, but I think that we can see them very capably move the chains for the Lions.
This may be a bold take. As good as the Lions have been, I believe that their one mistake is drafting Jahmyr Gibbs. I feel like that mistake's going to show up a lot more. And I think that they're starting to realize it because him getting out-touched by a veteran. I mean, granted, the veteran is a good veteran. Him getting out-touched, even in the pass game, I feel like we're going to see that again. Like you said, it's not going to be a traditional run game. I feel like Jahmyr Gibbs is going to find himself out and beat out by Craig. And we're going to see him get beat out, I feel like, week to week. And that high draft pick that they use on him, it's going to look pretty bad. I feel like that's going to be their one mistake throughout this pretty good rebuild.
And two more 1 o'clock games on the slate. Tev, we're going to go to the one that you highlighted earlier, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Atlanta Falcons. These Atlanta tight ends I want to bring up right away, Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith, recently very much involved. 11 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown for Pitts in his last two. Meanwhile, Jonnu Smith has 4 or more catches in the last 5 games. So Desmond Ridder might need to rely on his 2 tight end setup in order to take it to this tough Buccaneers defense. Not necessarily as imposing in the pass as they are in the run, where they rank 7th, but still some names litter that Buccaneers defense to be aware of. Linebackers such as Devin White and Levante David, Vita Vea's hulking presence through the middle. This is going to be a tough one for B.J. Robinson and Desmond Ridder, who is relatively famously not doing too hot on the road so far in his young career. How do we see this one going down, guys?
See is that I think this is going to be more of a defensive game this week, because what I see is that Tampa Bay only allows 7th in points allowed with 17.6 a game, and Atlanta's right behind them, 14th in the NFL with allow exactly 20 points a game. I think this is going to be a defensive matchup. I don't think there's going to be really no passing involved. I think both secondaries have been pretty good this year. It's all going to rely on the ground game. Is it going to be Rachaad White or Bijan Robinson? I think that's the 2 main reasons why which team will win. But I do think that the Bucs will take it. I think the Bucs will kind of take it out of Bijan's hands a little bit. So give me Tampa Bay in a pretty solid win to control the NFC South.
I like that you brought up that these defenses have been playing pretty well. One place where I'm going to disagree with you on, you said that it's going to come down to the run games. I'd like to bring up a stat. Both teams have been allowing an average less than 100 yards per game on the ground, with Atlanta at 99 exactly, and Tampa Bay at 83.8. This team, I mean, these run defenses have been pretty solid. Vita Vea being questionable, which is a big thing with this run defense, and also Atlanta's secondary, I believe, is, in my opinion, the veteran secondary looks pretty good. This veteran defense. It's going to come down to the pass game, in my opinion. It's going to come down to which quarterback could make less mistakes on offense. Desmond Ridder does have 6 interceptions on the year, but I believe that he could clean up his act on the road this game. And if he can, I believe that they could get Bijan Robinson available on the with his hands in the air a lot more. And if they could do that, get Kyle Pitts, those tight ends available, one of the two, or if they can get both available, it'd be great, and get this win. So I believe Atlanta could take this division out and reverse Uno you there.
Interesting. We're already split. And I wanted to bring up that outside of games against the Lions and Eagles, Baker hasn't had a passer rating less than 94. He's been very, very sharp, and he's been part of the reason that this Buccaneers team has been winning their games. So I pretty much see this. I think my highlight, I'm kind of more on the side of Tev, where I think I see this game being won by the team whose quarterback makes the less mistakes. Both defenses in general are very, very talented and well coached, with Todd Bowles and veteran free agents such as Calais Campbell and Jesse Bates really changing around this Atlanta defense. So this Falcons defense, probably not the hottest. Actually, in terms of pass defense, there's one category I wanted to bring up. Before last game against the Commanders and Sammy Howell's 5 sacks taken, Falcons only sack quarterbacks 5 times within their first 5 games. So that 1 sack per game rate doesn't look good in terms of getting that pressure on the quarterback. And the Buccaneers only really dropping their 2 games against the Eagles and Lions has me very motivated to take the Buccaneers here. While I think that the Falcons could ultimately pull out this division at the end of it, the Buccaneers are still relying on Baker's play, which could still be up and down. We don't know if it was just because he faced 2 tough defenses, or if Baker isn't necessarily sold to be a quarterback that's taking the next step. So in the meantime, I'm definitely betting on the former. I really think that Baker Mayfield is going to continue to look sharp, and I think he will make some plays to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who have continued to be there for him, to take this one over the Falcons. And I think that Rachaad White, something I worry about for Rachaad White is with 3.3 yards per carry so far this season, he might see the Buccaneers trying to throw other things at the wall at running back. And currently, the thing at the wall they're throwing at running back is Keyshawn Vaughn. Backup running back, got 6 carries last week. I'd be on the lookout for him to possibly get a few more. If we see Rachaad White struggle early, if we see a fumble, I think that might be it for him. I don't think that running back job is on lock as much as we saw earlier in the season when he was logging very, very high snap counts, closer to 70-80% of the plays. So give me the Bucs here, and I think it'll come at expense of their running game. I don't think we'll see that one pop off too much. And I think B-Jump will probably be limited too. So give me Baker. I think he's going to outplay Desmond Ridder here. That's how I'm going to see this one. And we're going to see one more matchup happen within these afternoon slate of games. The 3-2 Cleveland Browns. Maybe we'll get Deshaun Watson back. Maybe we'll be strutting out P.J. Walker again. We'll be facing the 3-3 Indianapolis Colts and Gardner Minshew. After Minshew's 3 picks against the Jacksonville Jaguars and facing a daunting task of playing what is now probably the best defense in the league with the Cleveland Browns, how are we feeling about this one?
Well, how I feel about this game is that I feel like this game is going to be Cleveland just because of the run game. The Colts are one of the worst rushing rushers allowed in the NFL, and they lost one of their best run stopping defensive tackles, Glover Stewart, of 6-game suspension over PEDs. So I honestly don't know who's going to be their next, who's going to be his replacement, but it doesn't sound good. So I think that despite if Watson plays or not, I think this offense is going to be very run heavy against this Colts team. And with Richardson out for the season with the shoulder injury, Minshew's going to be at the helm. But I still don't think it's going to kind of save them in the end. So I'm going to take Cleveland in a pretty run heavy type of game.
Um, so it may sound like I'm a big Colts hater. I hate to see a young man get hurt. And Anthony Richardson. I had a similar injury and a similar surgery. And that surgery is a tough surgery. And also, he's going to bounce back pretty well. I believe he's a pretty talented quarterback. And I believe in this time, the Colts should start to, I guess, get him a little more help. Um, but like you said, Glover Stewart being out on suspension doesn't help them. Them losing Anthony Richardson on top of that doesn't help them, and already all the other holes that they had on this offense really didn't help them. Uh, I believe that they're gonna fall in this game, but a big name to look out for is Greg Newsome. He's questionable going into this game. He's a defensive back that I really like. Just a name I like in general. If he could come back into this game, I believe that he could completely shut down this run. This run offense, this pass offense from the Colts, and give Gardner Minshew a very very hard time to get to his targets. So if he does play, I mean, him not playing doesn't really help, but if he does play, it's really going to surefire this pick for me. Give me Cleveland, and it's going to be a shut down game. I believe that Indy's going to struggle to score more than 13 points this game.
Yeah, I'm with you guys there, especially with what you said at the end,
Absolutely.
Tev. I think that Cleveland is going to take it to this Colts team. I think Minshew looked pretty sharp. He didn't have an interception in his first 90 plus attempts within the start that he had and the limited action that he had in other games. He played quite a bit, despite not starting more than one game before week 6. But Minshew definitely showing some cracks. He's not the most natural thrower. I think that he's very talented and a great leader, but I also think he has physical limitations in terms of where he can get the ball. And on top of that, I also think Colts have a limitation of how well they can protect Minshew even in the pocket. He took 3 sacks last week, and I think that this Colts offensive line, who might be missing Braden Smith again, is in for a tough task dealing with Myles Garrett, Zardarius Smith, and this Cleveland Browns team. So give me the team that's first in defensive points, in yards per game, in pass yards per game, and pretty much probably like 20 other defensive categories. Give me the Browns.
Yeah, shout out defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, former Lions head coach, former Eagles defensive coordinator, has really been like rejuvenated his career in Cleveland. Yeah, shout out Jim Schwartz, having a
Yeah,
really good year.
doing a great job over there.
Yeah.
Definitely saw it. No bigger highlight than beating the 49ers. And speaking of that 49ers team, we don't get to see them till Monday night, but we get to see two of their NFC West rivals face off in a 4 o'clock showdown. The Arizona Cardinals facing on the Geno Smith and 3-2 Seattle Seahawks in the Battle of the Birds. And Seahawks dropped one that was relatively winnable last week against the Bengals. Do we see them hitting slump central here with another loss against the Arizona Cardinals? Or do they even up their record at home games since 2019? Currently 13-14 in those games.
What I think about this game is that I think that Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks offense will bounce back against one of the worst defenses in the league. The Cardinals, they allow the most passing yards around the NFL. They give up a good amount of rushing yards. So I think Kenneth Walker could have a pretty good day. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett I saw are questionable, but I think they're probably expected to play. I know that Metcalf has a rib injury, and I think that Lockett has a hamstring injury, so that could be concerning. But on the bright side, maybe this is the one and true point that we could finally see Jackson Smith and Jigba really pan out. I think if these guys are banged up and not really going to be 100%, I feel like Pete Carroll should finally let Jackson Smith and Jigba finally release him. We can see how good he's how good is he going to be in the NFL. I think this is a perfect matchup for him. And in that fact, give me the Cardinals. And also Kyler Murray is practicing this week, so we could see him in the next maybe couple of weeks. Maybe that could boost up this Cardinals offense. But yeah, just give me Seattle Seahawks in this matchup.
I like that last point that you brought up with JSN. Going into the season, he was one of those names that apparently was a very bright spot in this Seattle offense. We haven't seen too much of him. Like you said, we haven't seen him been freed really, and given that offensive overload, I feel like this is a great opportunity, like you said, for him to take over this offensive overload. Even if they do play, those two do play. I believe that they should just start to target him a little more, just to give those star power a little rest going in. Now that we're in that sort of into that midseason, we're going into that midseason part. Teams are starting to get their buys a lot more. We're going to start seeing teams start to look to their third options a lot more. And I believe that this is the game for him. I also want to shout out Jamal Adams. You guys might not like this. Hasn't played at home, I believe, in like
Ooh.
2 years. Struggling
Last
with
home
injuries.
game was 2022's week 1, so the home opener, season opener.
Yeah. So yeah, he hasn't played a home game in a year and a half. So yeah, this is a big game for him. I'm not saying he's going to go out there and have 20 tackles and 2 picks, but I believe that he should make an impact on this game, especially with all the hype being behind him. I believe he's a very passionate player. As much as there is a negative aspect on his play type, but I believe that he should give this team a big boost morale-wise on defense, and they should get this win out.
Yeah, I'm with you guys there. No surprise Cardinals selection this time. I'm riding with the Seahawks. Tev, to your point, they're introducing Jamal Adams at this game. So they are taking this very seriously in terms of having Jamal Adams available. This was a very hyped pickup at the time that the Jets traded away Adams to Seattle. This is a guy that cost a first round pick. I would love to see him pan out for the Seattle Seahawks fans. I don't think we'll see him get 2 picks in a season, but at the same time, I think 20 tackles might be quite a way for him to get back into it. He is a fierce defender, and I welcome him back because honestly, we're on to bigger and better things here in New York too. Ones that I wanted to bring up is that the Cardinals have been outscored 51-12 in the second half over their last 3 games. Truly having some issues finishing up games, which is kind of disheartening because John Gannon's been doing a good job of getting his guys ready for the week. He's taken a game against Dallas. That doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen accidentally. And we could see a lot more intentional, potentially surprising wins, I think, if they learn how to make their adjustments a little better. I think that while this roster is definitely not on par with teams like the Seahawks and other teams that are expected to be playoff teams, we should still see this Cardinals roster really keep up the same way that it does, at least in the first half. I think that's pretty much the biggest thing holding back this Cardinals team until further notice. And yeah, Kyler Murray almost back, James Conner on the mend still. I just see no reason to really pick the Cardinals right here. So on to the Seahawks and on to the third NFC West team. Also missing some running backs, just like with James Conner in Arizona. We're seeing running back Kyron Williams, who was having a breakout season, out with an ankle injury this week. Running back Ronnie Rivers, the backup, also going to be out. So we're seeing an assembly of Zach Evans, rookie, Royce Freeman, who took some time with the Denver Broncos in the late 2010s, and former Ram Darrell Henderson recently re-signed after a year or so off the rosters. Stint with Jacksonville that didn't quite work, and he hasn't seen regular season play since his time with Los Angeles. So they're going to be heading into a pretty tough task with TJ Watt and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do we think that these injuries are going to hinder the Rams, or is it next man up like it has been so far this season with Sean McVay's crew?
I think it's going to be more like next man up, like you said. Despite with T.J. Watt, he did not practice yesterday. I think he had some type of injury. I'm not sure what injury, but he did have an injury, so he didn't practice yesterday. But I don't think it's really going to be that much of an issue because the Steelers are always pretty good against the run. I don't think the run game is really going to be that much of a factor. I think it's going to be more the passing game. I think that Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp can have really good weeks against this kind of like washed up Pittsburgh defense, who gives out a pretty good amount of yardage. But if TJ Watt is not going to be playing, I am very concerned about this Pittsburgh defense. But I do think Matt Stafford will have the bigger advantage against this Pittsburgh defense. So give me the Rams in this. I think they're gonna. I think them traveling to LA. I think it's gonna be tough on them. And I do think the Rams are going to come in. They're going to get a big win at home. So let's go Rams.
Okay, very weird connection. So Kenny Pickett and Aaron Donald have been training together in the off seasons through Pitt. I don't know if you guys know this. Aaron Donald's big on staying home to train. It's just so happened Pittsburgh is his home, and he trains at Pitt. And we also know that Kenny Pickett was that homegrown talent for them, enrolled early there. So he was able to train with Aaron Donald early in the esque of that
Hmm.
pass rush. So very, very weird stat that I know. Just because when Aaron Donald used to play with the knives, you'd see Kenny Pickett, like little glimpses of Kenny Pickett throwing the ball, or like Kenny Pickett in the background, or just little things, and vice versa. Whenever Kenny Pickett's trainer would post something, you'd see like an Aaron Donald like walking in the background, or grabbing water, or watching over in between drills, grabbing a breath. Very, very weird stat. Not stat, very weird fact. So they're familiar with each other. First meeting, I believe, too. On opposite ends of the ball, never played with each other as well. But they, I believe that Aaron Donald's going to get the best of this. Aaron Donald, even though he may have that advantage in seeing Aaron Donald train, Kenny Pickett hasn't shown enough to say that he could win a game on his own. Yeah, Pickens has shown glimpse to be his number one guy, and clearly is his number one guy. But it's going to take a lot for them to beat this defense and Aaron Donald, and also to keep up with this offense. Cooper Kupp is back in Nesk, and I believe that it's going to come down to that. If Cooper Kupp could come out, get about 15 targets over 100 yards, this is going to be a pretty easy game for them at Matt Stafford.
Yeah, and I mean that's pretty much what he's gotten in his first two. Cup within his first two games back, 15 catches, 266 yards, and a touchdown. So definitely bringing this Rams offense an extra step up. They are now the fifth ranked offense in terms of yard per game. Compare that to the Steelers, who ranked 31st. The Rams, they don't have too many big names outside of Donald on the defensive line. And while Aaron Donald shares a lot of love for his hometown Steelers, a team that he's very adamant about the fact that, like Tev said, homegrown Steelers fan. I think that it's kind of interesting that we've seen a very like positive media surrounding it. Like we see Mason Cole, the Steelers center, hype up Aaron Donald and talk about how great he is, and Aaron Donald talk about how great the Steelers are. And now we're going to watch Aaron Donald make the Steelers look like a piece of shit. So I think that the Steelers are just hindered by Matt Canada right now. And if TJ Watt can't suit up, that's really their best player. A player that already won a game or two for them this year has is not going to be on the field, and that's going to put the Steelers back even more. Traveling across the country to Los Angeles to play this game, I think that this is going to be a great game for the Los Angeles Rams to advance to 4-3. Matt Stafford has looked great, even better with Cooper Kupp. He was looking solid with just Bukanakua, who had a little bit of a fall off game last week, but still had 90 yards and a touchdown in Cooper Kupp's first game back with the Rams. And I'm just a big fan of what the Rams have been doing this year. So give me the Rams. And we're going to trek on forward to a game that still takes place out west, probably unsurprisingly given the 4 o'clock time. But we're seeing a potential get right game for two quarterbacks that combined to throw 5 interceptions within their last games. We saw Russell Wilson not even hit the 100-yard mark against the Kansas City Chiefs last week. And we saw something similar for Jordan Love just a week ago before the Packers bye. Threw 3 picks and has thrown 6 in his last 3 games. All of the ones that he's thrown in 2023 have come in the last 3 weeks. And now he gets a chance to get right game with the Denver Broncos, who are by far the worst defense so far in the NFL. The Packers getting a chance at a get right game. The Broncos hoping this can be a get right game for them. Who's getting right this game?
I think it's going to be the Packers that are going to get right in this game because the Broncos defense has been absolutely atrocious. They're the last in points allowed. They're the second worst in passing yards allowed, and the number one worst rushing defense. So I think this is going to be a big game for Jordan Love. I think this is going to be a game that you're gonna see like those early season numbers where he was throwing like 3 touchdowns with no interceptions. With especially with Christian Watson, I think he's finally gonna have a good get back game as well after being pretty quiet the last couple of weeks. I do think this just the Packers offense in general is gonna have a get right back week. So I do think that the Packers are gonna go into Denver and I think they're gonna beat them.
I like that call that you said, Charlie, and I also like Matt that you brought up the interception problem. 10 this season between two quarterbacks. I'm a betting guy. I like to bet on NFL and NCAA. I like to bet on points. I'm a big numbers guy when it comes to offenses and defenses. And this is the game that I was looking at all week with their number being at 45 points, total points. This is a game that I was thinking about taking the under at. Both offenses seem to struggle, and I believe that even though Green Bay will have a get back game, potentially even put up 3 touchdowns, a couple field goals, I don't see Denver being able to match that right there. I see Denver, another team right there that might put up less than 13 points this game. They're missing a few key guys on defense. They're potentially going to be missing Darnell Savage. They're potentially going to be missing Devondre Campbell, and also they're missing Eric Stokes, and then potentially Jair Alexander. Huge names. Then on offense, you got Aaron Jones right there for Green Bay. Um, Huge names, but still, I don't think that Jerry Jeudy and company is going to be able to take advantage of this. I mean, I just named two cornerbacks and a whole DB room missing. Um, I don't think they're going to be. That's insane to say that a starting NFL team will not be able to take advantage of a complete DB room missing. And for me to say they're going to put up less than 13 points is even crazier. I, I may seem like I hate older quarterbacks, but I just hate teams that buy into these older quarterbacks and think that they could rejuvenate their careers and rejuvenate their regimes and whatnot. It just didn't make sense to me. This whole Denver team did not make sense to me. I was never a Denver buy-in when they made that big trade for Russell Wilson. I don't know. This team, in my eyes, needs to blow it up sooner than keep doing what they're doing. I feel like they're just dragging fans along. And as a fan that does not have a win, they have a win, and it sucks to watch your team lose. But I feel bad for the fans. They need to do something.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like this game's gonna end up being a huge stink fest. I don't think I'm as down on the Broncos' inability to capitalize on the Packers' passing. I think Russell Wilson has still maintained, especially in the first half, major signs of improvement. I'm not gonna say that goes through for the second half. We saw first front seat with the New York Jets game that he seemed to stumble a bit. He seemed to have a little less of a hold of his offense. And those big plays that were coming through Jordan McLaughlin and Samaje Perine in the passing game kind of came by design. So I can see where Tev comes from, despite the fact of Wilson's numbers, the 12-4 interceptions ratio, only 2 picks before the loss to the Chiefs last week. I'm very optimistic that Wilson will have a good game against the Packers, and I think the Packers will have to score a little bit to make sure that the Broncos don't pull this one out on them. And I have serious questions on whether or not the Packers can do that. Jordan Love, after starting out very, very solid within his first two starts, his last three have looked less than stellar. I think that we've seen a lot of room for improvement, and instead we're seeing him kind of burn out. So hopefully this can be a get right game for Jordan Love. I just question its ability to happen. I have such a feeling of wanting to take the Broncos here, especially after what you told me about the Packers secondary, and I think I am. Even with Aaron Jones coming back, Aaron Jones might be a step slow, and the Packers might not have the running back room to take advantage of this Denver Broncos team that has already made quite a few games look like a track meet. We think about Brees Hall running for more than 170 yards. We remember what A-Chain and Raheem Mostert did just a few weeks ago when they put up 70 against the Denver Broncos. So I think that that's where Tev thinks about Tev, where you bring up Russell Wilson, like maybe not being able to take advantage of this hurt secondary, I think of a less than 100% Aaron Jones. I think about Charlie's favorite player, AJ Dillon, and practice squad players. Other than that, James Robinson is a recent addition to the Packers, but I don't see them as being able to give Jordan Love enough help to help him pull this one out on the road. So give me this win against Denver, and Denver should cherish it because I don't think they're getting too many more this season.
AJ Dillon's going to prove you wrong.
I don't know what wrong is in that context, but we soldier on. Los Angeles Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs are the last 4 o'clock game, and let's get right into it, guys. We see two of the best quarterbacks in the league. Justin Herbert, 1333 in terms of passing yards, 9-2 touchdown interception ratio, over 100 passer rating at 101.7. Patrick Mahomes, 1593, 11-5 touchdown interception ratio, and 95.7 passer rating. I think that these two names are obviously going to get all the headlines and all the spotlight, but how do we feel about this game? Are there any other players that come to mind for you guys?
What I really come to mind in this game, these type of players, I think of the Chargers defense. I think of Khalil Mack. I think Khalil Mack, if the Chargers have a case to win in this game, they need Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa to step up, especially Joey Bosa. But Joey Bosa's been pretty disappointed, but Khalil Mack has, and he's been pretty good the last couple of weeks. He has 8 sacks in the last 3 weeks. So I think he's been having a pretty good stretch so far. But the Chiefs have been really good on defense. I'm looking at their rankings, and they are second. They are second in the NFL with the least amount of points allowed, with 14.7, behind the 49ers with 14.5. This Chiefs defense has been secretly really good this year. They don't give up that many points. But
it's a secret. You know I thought we've talked about it quite a few times this year. We've talked about how this Jacksonville Jaguars game, Trevor Lawrence was humbled by the Chiefs. This was less than a secret. I'm a little mad because you're stealing my point. Those I had the 5th defensive yards per game, 5th pass yards per game. But this is far from a secret, Charlie. Ted brought up Trent McDuffie, too, which we'll get to in a second. But just wanted to interject with that. I can't wait to get to that.
But you know what I feel like, though? I feel like there might be a little bit of an upset brewing this week. I feel like Justin Herbert might get the best out of Kansas City. I don't know why. This is one of the weird ones that I have a gut feeling about. I think the Chargers are going to upset the Chiefs in Arrowhead. They're going to split with each other. I think this is the week that they're going to split. And I think the Chargers are going to be up 1-0 so far against this team. So give me the Chargers in an upset.
So I like to bring up that point immediately. Trent McDuffie. This is the rare instance that trading up for a DB worked out. And oh my God, Trent McDuffie. Trading up to grab Trent McDuffie. Trent McDuffie was one of my favorite DBs coming out of his class. He's a solid DB. I believe that he just needed a little more help. Just being that number one guy, and believe that he could come in and be that number one guy. Him coming into the Kansas City with Snead still being there at the time, and Watson, and him being that slot defender his first rookie year, and then now forming into potentially one of the best DBs quietly in the league. He may not be the guy that leads the league in interceptions ever or leads the league in pass deflections, but boy, is he locked down. I'm getting excited even thinking about it. I don't understand why the NFL, the DBs like that just always amaze me. That could quietly lock down some of the best and just go away with it. Calvin Ridley had a pretty bad game when he matched up against him. Every wide receiver he matched up against, he low-key locked down, and like we said, the team only let up 13.5 points this season. And let's go on the opposite end on the ball. I believe that Travis Kelce is starting to get that step back. Travis Kelce is closer to 30 than his younger side. He's 34 now. I feel like he's on the back end of his career. If he can't get going, like you said, Charlie, as much as I'm hyping up this defense, I think I have a gut feeling as well that the Chargers might take this one and split the season. If they can't get Travis Kelce going and get him those Travis Kelce games and those connections that we see Mahomes have with him, I believe that they could fall to this team. I don't believe that they have enough star power on offense to honestly keep up with the miracle work that Justin Herbert could get done down the stretch. So yeah, I have an upset alert as well. Give me the Chargers in a late game, like last play, last touchdown or field goal, last drive play. I believe that's what it's going to come down to, the last drive of the game.
I think I would have predicted that with you guys if Brandon Staley was not the head coach of the Chargers. I forget where I saw it, but I saw somebody online social media conjecture say it's such a shame that Brandon Staley and Mike Vrabel can't just switch teams because Mike Vrabel is coaching the Titans out of a
Ooh.
rebuild with their less than stellar roster when they really could just blow it up. Instead, they're taking games against some solid foes. And Brandon Staley is really just, I think, ruining the prime contender that the Chargers are. I think they have all the pieces on the roster. And whereas we're just bringing up all those stats about the Chiefs and their defense, the Chargers, 31st in total yards per game, allowing 24 points per game, which would rank 23rd, and last in pass yards per game allowed. I just think that the Chiefs have the weapons to stop Herbert or at least slow him and his weapons down. Quentin Johnston, another weapon of his, has not successfully been able to fill in for Mike Williams. 2 targets last week, 0 catches. I think that there's just too much going against this Chargers team. They're facing another tough defense, which after losing to the Cowboys, mainly due to that solid defense getting them wrapped up, I think that that doesn't bode well for the Chargers. I think Herbert's going to look fine. I think Herbert is going to show you guys the shootout that you want. I just don't think that Kansas City has any way to give this one up. I think that every time that Kansas City gets the ball, it's going to be on Mahomes to score. I think they're going to be expected to score every single drive this game. And if they make some mistakes, then the Chargers could very much get it. They're going to bring their A game too. This is the divisional matchup, and this might not end up as predictable as we see. So I understand that sentiment that you guys feel. It's hard to go against your gut, but my gut's telling me to go with the Chiefs. So I'm just going to stick with the Chiefs. Statistics and my gut are on my side. So I have to play the lone wolf here. And without further ado, we bring us to the last game we're covering today. We're going to get to the Monday night game and Week 8's Thursday night matchup in Monday's episode. However, we got the best one yet. The Miami Dolphins heading into Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Tua topping the league in every major passing category. Dolphins rushing and passing games just looking immaculate despite A-Chain getting hurt. We saw Raheem Mostert really just take over the lead role without an issue. I think that this is going to be a tough one for the Eagles, who are stumbling out of their first loss of the season for the Jets. But getting some names back, maybe losing some. Lane Johnson questionable. Jalen Carter not necessarily off the injury report yet. Bradley Roby on the injury report. So this is setting up to be a tough one for the Eagles. How about you guys? Do you think that the Eagles are going to potentially drop their second in a row this week?
I don't think they're going to drop their second in a row. I think that the Dolphins are going to a hostile environment like Lincoln Financial Field. The atmosphere. I think this is going to take them out of kind of the groove that they have so far this year. Both teams are both 5-1, one of the better teams in the league. I do think that Jalen Carter. I think Jalen Carter might play. So if he does play, I think that's going to be concerning, especially for Miami, who has really not that great offensive line. With Teron Armstead still banged up, he's still not playing. I don't think that this Dolphins. I don't think this Dolphins offensive line is going to handle that Eagles pass rush. I really don't think so. Hassan Reddick has been really good when he's been healthy. Josh Sweat's been pretty good. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, all those talented defensive linemen. So in that case, I do think the Eagles are going to beat the Miami Dolphins, but I do think that the Miami Dolphins are still going to get involved in the offense, though. I don't think there's a way that Eagles defense can't stop Tyreek Hill. He's a man on a mission to get 2,000 yards, and I can see it happening.
So the biggest narrative of this game is Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa matchup. How in 2017 national championship game in Alabama, as much as we like to call the Eagles the Philadelphia Bulldogs, let's remember Jalen Hurts got benched for Tua in 2017 to lead that comeback, and let's remember as well that Devontae Smith was on that team too, and Devontae Smith has that highlightable deep, I believe, 50-yard bomb to spark that comeback and get Tua that starting job. I believe that all three of those names are going to be big factors. Devontae Smith on that injury report, I believe that if he plays, he's going to be a big factor in this game. Um, as he has been in the deep threat all season, I believe that I believe that the Eagles are slowly showing that Devontae is their number one receiver, even though that connection between him and Hurts is a little less because of that situation that happened back in 2017. Obviously, they grew past it. But I believe that the Eagles are showing that he's their number one wide receiver the last few weeks with A.J. Brown quite necessarily not being able to get as many targets and not be able to break free as much as he wanted to.
AJ Brown
Um,
has five straight games with 125 yards straight though. So I feel like I hear your point, and I was right there with you a few weeks back, where against that Vikings team, when AJ Brown was shouting at Jalen Hurts on the sideline, I definitely was with you there that Javonte Smith might be picking up this wide receiver one role, but I think that we're kind of overlooking the fact that AJ Brown has been the wide receiver one in that offense, and I think Dallas Goedert has kind of played second fiddle more than Devontae Smith over the past few weeks. As a Devontae Smith fantasy owner, I felt the drought happen over the last few weeks, so I can't say that I necessarily like fully agree with the fact that I think Devontae Smith's really taken over wide receiver one.
I see your points there. No, I see your points there. I was gonna go there as well. Um, but yeah, Dallas Goddard is another factor in this game as well. But he's on the injury report too. Like you said, this is gonna come down to. I mean, it's gonna be a tough game at home, but it's gonna come down to which quarterback really wants it more. Both teams have played with a lot of heart. We saw Dolphins come back from a 14-0 deficit from the Panthers last week, and then we saw Philly come off a big loss. Um, I split between me, but I see Philly winning this. I see Jalen Hurts showing. I wanted to build that connection up, but I see him showing that connection with Devontae Smith, and Devontae Smith having a big breakout game over 100 yards. But like you guys said, AJ Brown might continue that streak at 125 yards. This is going to be a really tough matchup for both ends of the ball.
And I'm still going to take the Dolphins. I can't hop off this bandwagon just yet. Tyreek Hill's on pace for 2,300 yards to shatter that receiver record. I think he puts up 200 this game. I think he takes advantage of Darius Slay just getting back. I think he's off the injury report. But regardless, I just think that this is going to be a Tyreek Hill game. I think this is going to be a Mike McDaniel masterclass after the Jets kind of showed a way to get it done against the Eagles. And I'm going to pretty much take the rest of this time to wrap it up, though. We run a little over. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for listening. And we're going to be back on Monday with more previews. The Monday night game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings. And at the start of week 8, we're going to see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel up to Buffalo to face the Bills. But sorry for the quick wrap this time. I got to go. So I'm Matt.
I'm Charlie.
And I'm Tev.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. Take care.